Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you to everyone who's logged in to join us for this MBA program overview at the MIT Sloan School of Management. My name is Katie Radel. I am the Senior Associate Director of Admissions, and I'm joined here today some of my colleagues who will be online and available to answer your questions using the Q&A function. So I'm joined by my colleague Anne, Stephanie, Rich, and from the Sloan Admissions Office, and my colleague Sharona from the Leaders of Global Operations, or LGO program, which we'll talk about more in just a few minutes. I see a few people already starting to use the Q&A function, and this is how we would like to engage with you today. I have a couple of slides that I want to walk through to dive a little bit deeper into the program elements as well as the application. I know we have a deadline looming in about a month's time, but my colleagues, as I said, will be answering those questions throughout our time this morning or this afternoon, this evening for you. You can upvote others' questions. So if you see a question that was one that you came to today's session with, please upvote that. We will also be marking questions to be answered live. And as we move into the second half of our session, I will be answering those questions out loud as well. So before we get started, we always start at the very beginning. And for us, that means the mission of the MIT Sloan School of Management. The mission of the Sloan School is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world. And this is very much a part of our everyday lives at MIT Sloan. It's in every conversation. It's also in every syllabi of our faculty. And you will hear these words come up continuously as you listen today, as you engage with our community, our students, our alumni, and our faculty. I hope that these words become themes as you're exploring the MIT Sloan experience. And of course, you know, I want to be the first, I want to be able to connect the dots on our mission and how that's playing out in the current situation that our world is facing in a global pandemic of COVID-19. And before I talk a little bit more about how Sloan is facing this problem, I want to make sure that I wish you and all of your family and friends continued good health around the world. There is quite a bit happening at MIT Sloan, and there's only a few snapshots and highlights here on the screen. I will highlight over on the far left of your screen, the COVID19 Alliance. This was developed and launched last March by Simon Johnson and Retzef Levy, two senior faculty at MIT Sloan. And they have really engaged and rallied our alumni and our current students and their peer faculty at the school and the institute to focus on challenges both operationally and the supply chain challenges, as well as from a policy perspective. One of our greatest accomplishments last spring was putting more attention on access to rapid testing and personal protection equipment, or PPE, for our senior and assisted living communities, often a community globally that is most in need of this service or this attention during these global pandemics, but often less able to really fight or fend for themselves. And so they really focused on this supply chain issue in the state of Massachusetts, and were able to gain a lot of support, not only from our alumni community, but also from our local city and state government officials as well. From the student perspective, there are a few new courses around Sloan and MIT that have been developed over the course of the last 6 months that are elective courses for our students. I will highlight one that will happen this fall, called the Fall of COVID. It is being offered by the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship and will bring together students from across multiple disciplines throughout the institution, that being MIT, to really look and drill into a lot of the emerging complex social issues that have come to the surface through the COVID-19 pandemic. So I know that my colleagues and I are looking forward to seeing how that course plays out and the type of project work and solutions that the students come up with as they're looking at those problems. This is just, again, a snapshot, and we encourage you to continue to learn more on the website and certainly the COVID-19 Alliance website about all of the work being done here at MIT Sloan and certainly at MIT. We are a portfolio of programs at MIT Sloan, and I know that we are here today to really focus and drill into what the MBA experience is, and certainly that also means the LGO program. In a moment, I'll have my colleague Sharona tell you a little bit more about the LGO program, but when you look at this portfolio of programs, know that the students that are in these programs every day at MIT Sloan are your peers and your colleagues. There are a number of ways our students pursue an MBA. So from the middle of the spectrum where the MBA is all the way to the far right, those are two of our two executive level MBA programs. Those students come into the school with more senior leadership positions and an average of about 15 to 16 years of work experience. And then on the far end of the timeline, you'll have our early career or career launcher degree programs, including 2 specialty masters, a master's in business analytics and a master's in finance, as well as our new offering, which launched last year, our MBA early admissions program. And I am confident that there are folks online with us today that are here to learn about the MBA program while they're still in university. And so thank you for joining us. Sharona, can I invite you to tell us a little bit more about the Leaders of Global Operations program?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharona Bollinger from the Leaders of Global Operations and Missions team. The LGO program is, as mentioned, a dual degree between Sloan and MIT School of Engineering, where you can earn both an MBA and a Master's of Science. The program begins in June every year, and you spend the first 3 months with your LGO cohort before being fully integrated back into Sloan's fall semester business core. Students apply to one of 8 different engineering departments, and each student completes a guaranteed 6-month internship with one of our 26 industry partner companies, where they do research for their master's thesis. Our partner companies also fund the program so that each student admitted will receive an LGO fellowship. On average, this covers at least half of total tuition for the 2 years. So if you have a STEM background and you're interested in bridging business and technology, please consider LGO. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you so much, Sharona. I'm always impressed that our LGO students complete 2 degrees in 2 years. They certainly have their work cut out for them. There are 2 other joint degree offerings that Sloan students pursue, where in 3 years, so slightly different than the 2-year LGO program, they will earn 2 master's degrees. One is with the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning, or affectionately called DUST, and as well as the Harvard Kennedy School for Government. There are a variety of different master's programs that you can pursue there, such as a Master's of Public Administration or Public Policy. In those 2 programs, again, they're 3 years. You will spend 1 year at one school, another full year at the second school, and then for that core experience, and then you will integrate across both schools to finalize and round out your elective courses. So let's dive into the MBA program here at MIT Sloan. These are hopefully some familiar demographics of the class of 2021, so our rising second years. As you can see, our class has on average 5 years of work experience. It is quite a range. Typically, it's between 2 and about 10 years of work experience. With that sweet spot, about 80% of the class hovering around 5 years of work experience. On the other side of the screen, you'll see the map of undergraduate degrees that our class of 2021 pursued. I think what this really highlights is that it is a very diverse class in terms of the experiences that they're bringing into the classroom. There are a number of undergraduate degree interests, and on average, at least 30 or more different industries, different functions being represented in the classroom. If you've met me before along the way, you'll often hear me say that it is just as important that you're learning from your classmates and your peers around you as you are learning from the faculty, of course, and vice versa. I want your classmates to learn as much from you. And the more diversity we have in the classroom in terms of thought and experience, the more that there is to share and sort of use as a vehicle to continue learning. So why an MBA from MIT Sloan? I'm going to walk through these 4 different buckets. First, I'm going to dive into the academic experience, rounded out by that student life experience, everything that happens outside the classroom, and how that really comes together. And then we'll talk about the career development or the career experience here at MIT Sloan before I open it up to your questions. So please continue using the Q&A function. I see that number ticking up, and I promise we will get to as many questions as we possibly can. It's in the hour's time that we have. So first, I want to talk about the flexible curriculum here at MIT Sloan in the MBA program, and certainly in the LGO program too. We are well known for our 1 semester core. And what that means is in the first semester of that MBA experience, so the fall semester, your coursework will be prescribed for you. This will fall into both analytical tools and frameworks, as well as those business essentials, such as like accounting, and whatnot. Often what we're hoping to do, or what we're looking to do, is give you the tools and the groundwork to see how you can, how you'll drive decisions forward in your organization when you go back to work using these new analytical tools and frameworks. In our core semester at MIT, we do have a data analytics course. I believe we're one of the few in the world that has this. And if you're interested in pursuing more data analytics, there is a pathway to do so. After that core semester, you really have all the flexibility in the world to customize that academic experience in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th semester. That can often be overwhelming for our students to think that they're choosing from hundreds of electives, both at Sloan and across MIT. So therefore, the school has developed a few different structured pathways that you can follow from the start of your MBA experience. The most structure, so the opposite of a very flexible, customizable experience, is called a track. These come in finance, entrepreneurship, and innovation, as well as enterprise management. These tracks are something that you do have to start at the beginning of your program. They are not part of the admissions process. If you are admitted to the program in the summer that you matriculate, you will then learn more about these tracks and make the decision whether or not you would like to take the next step to pursue one of these tracks. Oftentimes there's a lot of career development that's also embedded in these track experiences. And certainly if you're a career changer, maybe you're coming from engineering or marketing and you want to transition into finance or banking, it's really important that you consider that finance track. It's going to set you up for success and make sure that you're taking the right elective courses and have the right extracurricular experiences to be ready for that hiring process. Somewhere between all the flexibility in the world and a lot of structure is a Sloan certificate. And these are in healthcare, sustainability, and data analytics. These are a great roadmap if you're interested in learning more about these different subjects. It is a number of electives that you'll need to check the boxes of every semester. You can decide a little bit further into your time at MIT that you want to pursue one, but make sure you leave enough semesters of electives to complete all of those courses. None of these actually show up on your degree. I want to be very upfront about that. This is a personal choice to pursue a track or a certificate. Not all of our students do. Many students will start out their time at MIT on a track or certificate, but a lot of those students will end up following their curiosities. They'll learn about something new, and next thing they know, they're off and running, and they're no longer pursuing one of those tracks or certificates. All of this is non-binding. MIT really wants to hone in on that flexible experience for you over those 3 semesters of electives. So the academic experience goes beyond sort of choosing your electives over 3 semesters. At MIT Sloan, one of the cornerstones of the learning environment is something that we developed here called pedagogy we developed at MIT called action learning. This is a learning experience where you are going to be continuously applying the theory from the classroom with the practice of that tool or framework out a real problem. Most commonly, our students will experience that through electives called action learning labs. There are more than 15 labs at MIT Sloan. They're not white coat and goggle labs. The lab is a real company working with a real team on a real problem that they've put forth. About half of our labs have an international travel component, such as China Lab, India Lab, Global Entrepreneurship Lab, or G-Lab, as our students affectionately call it, where you're working on with an entrepreneur in an emerging market who's looking to grow beyond their market or their borders. And then the other half of the labs will most likely have companies or connections in the Boston or New England area. Other ways you experience action learning is through simulations that may happen in the classroom, and certainly through guest lectures that the faculty will bring into the classroom to talk about their leadership journey or a challenge that their industry or organization face, and they just seem to show up at the right time to have those discussions with our students in the classroom. This action learning also plays out in what we call student treks and study tours. These are 100% student driven. It's an opportunity to continue exploring a region of the world or an industry that you may be interested in. This is unique to Sloan to have these trips be so student driven. The primary difference between the trek and a study tour is really that the study tour comes with academic credit. So it would use some of your elective coursework or elective hours to complete that course. And then obviously you would have deliverables, homework, and whatnot through the course that you take. An example of a study tour is the Southeast Asia study tour. The countries and the part of ASEAN that will rotate and change based on the students' interests. They're meeting with senior leaders. They're on the ground learning about cultural business practices in a handful of countries over a week or two's time, depending on the time of year they travel, whether it's during a spring break or our January independent activities period that happens every year. So the MIT experience, it's not all about the coursework, though obviously that's why you're here, is to earn an MBA. You should plan on carving out a significant amount of your time to develop that leadership muscle and really, embed yourself in a number of initiatives or clubs around the school. I mentioned briefly earlier that our students at MIT Sloan, because they're MIT graduate students, they are given access to cross-register across MIT up to 3 times. You can also cross-register into Harvard professional schools, and then those students come into our Sloan classroom. So very diverse conversations and learning experiences in the classroom at all times. There are about 100 student clubs at MIT Sloan. About half are very professional and industry focused, and the other half are built around personal interests or cultural or regional interests of the students. Most students will join maybe between 4 and 6 clubs, and that will allow them to take leadership roles in most of those, whether it's a more leadership role or they're leading an initiative within that group. And then there are tons of conferences and different initiatives like hackathons and different initiatives and competitions through our other centers for excellence throughout MIT. Entrepreneurship, I will highlight specifically. It's very much in the water and of the experience of all students at MIT. Even if pursuing your own startup idea or working in a startup is not something that you're thinking of pursuing in your short or long-term career path, there are so many opportunities for you to become more comfortable with that that way of problem solving and problem identification, and thinking about how you may want to go back into an organization with a more entrepreneurial or innovative mindset in how you tackle the work. A lot of our students do engage in the Martin Trust Center and the Legatum Center, which is a parallel organization that is focused on entrepreneurship and innovation in emerging markets. So if that's of interest to you, I would certainly recommend that you're dialing into the Legatum Center and learning more about the initiatives and the work that they're doing with our students around the world. But most importantly, some of the things I already mentioned is we hope that you come prepared to MIT to explore those curiosities that you have, and be ready to gain new perspectives in the coursework that you're learning from your peer group that you're engaging with every day, and certainly getting out and onto all of MIT's campus to see what they have to offer. Part of the MIT experience is also that when you graduate, you are joining not only the Sloan School of Management alumni community, but the larger MIT alumni community globally. There are nearly 140,000 MIT alumni around the world. And I'm going to highlight some of the statistics you see in the red circles on the far right of your screen. This was a study done a number of years ago to measure the impact of the entrepreneurial ecosystem of our MIT alumni around the world. At the time, there were over 30,000 active startups were founded by MIT alumni in the world that generated just under 500 million jobs globally. And if we measured the impact of that development, it would be the 9th largest economy in the world. So it's a highly motivated, highly impactful group of students. When you think about that mission statement to improve the world, that is certainly what our alumni are graduating and going out into the world to accomplish. So next I'm going to touch on the career experience. Certainly that's a huge part of why folks are looking at pursuing an MBA to really launch and advance their career. A number of our students are career changers. As I talk about the application later, you will hear me say that that we do expect and anticipate that when you show up on campus, your career plans might change. They likely will change. There is so much to explore. There's so many of your peers coming in from industries and functions that you didn't even know were jobs or industries that you could explore before coming to MIT Sloan. And so we do have a system that is set up to support fully our career changers. I'm going to start and highlight the career core. We talked earlier about the 1 semester core from an academic perspective here at Sloan. Embedded in that academic core is also your career core. This is a number of, this came together with our senior leadership from the Career Development Office, working hand in hand with the faculty who teach in the core semester. And predominantly that means combining curriculum and joining forces on the organizational processes and communication and leadership courses, and finding just the right times to make sure that we're adding that extra layer of career services and career guidance. After that first semester, the Career Development Office really is up to how you utilize it is really up to you. I would highly encourage you to build relationships with the advisors in that office and to understand how all of their services work from start to finish, meaning at the very far end of the spectrum, you're still in that exploratory phase, figuring out what your strengths are and your blind spots, all the way through the resume prep, interview prep, and when it comes time to negotiate that offer. The Career Development Office is a resource that you have for life as an alumni, and so understanding how they work and taking advantage of the development opportunities that they provide to you as a student will only make them more accessible to you as you graduate and think about that next turn, maybe 5, 6, 7 or more years down the road. We do participate in on-campus recruiting, which is the more traditional career services path in business school. Though more recently, we have noticed that our graduating MBA students are being a little more disruptive in that path. They are finding their next or their first postgraduate jobs through the network. It takes a little more resilience, rolling up your sleeves, a lot more networking, but they're able to find the right job and carve something out perhaps for themselves at an organization that makes the most sense for them. So we're excited to continue to watch that data and see how this unfolds for our students. And then certainly a small percentage of our students right out of school do pursue entrepreneurship. Many more pursue entrepreneurship as the years pass. So I'm going to talk just quickly about the application. If you're not aware, it is live and you are able to start working on that in a couple of weeks. On September 15th, my colleagues who oversee our evaluation committees are going to have a deeper dive webinar into the application components and application and admissions process. Here on the left side of the screen, you'll see all of the components of the application. On our website, there are great descriptions of all these different pieces. I will highlight a few that we tend to get the most questions about. The first is those first three items you see: the resume, the cover letter, and the organizational chart. That is those are the most professional pieces that you're going to submit to the committee as part of your application. Your cover letter should be professional. Here's my tip: make sure that it's also professionally formatted. But this is really where you're going to tie everything together and add a little more flair, a little more color into how the MBA or how this experience fits into your career path. What in your past has impacted your decision to pursue an MBA, to pivot perhaps into a new career path? I don't recommend sort of regurgitating what's already in your application, or sorry, in your resume. Help us unpack that a little bit more in this component of the cover letter. It is only 300 words, so use that real estate wisely. The organizational chart is the next component I get the most questions about, and then the video statement. The organizational chart is something we introduced to our two-year MBA a couple of years ago. We love these data points. What it allows us to do is understand sort of where you sit in your team or in your business unit within the organization. Who are you working with every day? Who are you influencing and impacting, and vice versa? Who is influencing, impacting you? There are a couple examples that you can follow or templates embedded in the online application, but most people will create something that will help us understand what your role means within the greater team. Certainly, I'm not looking, for the entire organization. My example is always, if you work at Amazon, I don't need to see, the tens and thousands of people that work at Amazon. I know who's in charge at the top. What I would like to see is really your business unit, and then who's around you. Who does your manager report into? Who do they influence? We see lots of dotted lines and things like that. I know that organizations are changing their structures constantly. But there are some good reference points in the templates in the application. Quickly, we did last year choose to eliminate or decrease our number of recommendation letters. So we are only asking for one. I mean that. We only want one letter of recommendation. So choose that person who's going to be able to advocate for you with positive anecdotal evidence to write that letter of recommendation for your Sloan application. We did introduce 2 additional references then, in case there are gaps or areas that we want to gain a little more clarification around. Here's what I'll say: if we call them, do not worry about it. If we don't call them, do not worry about it. And then finally, the 60-second video statement. For me, this is where I'm going to not only get to know your personality, I usually learn something more personal about our applicants here, but I'm also able to understand and evaluate your communication style here as well. Have as much fun with the video as you want, but remember, it is still a professional business school application. Do not hire a film crew. Do not professionally edit this. Take as many 60-second takes as you like. You can use your phone or your computer to record this. And then upload the 60-second cut that you like the best. If you decide to go outside, maybe to a rooftop or to a cafe, or some people like to go into the dog park, Please make sure that there's not too many surrounding sounds. It's important, again, that I can hear you. It's just as important that I can see you. So if you feel like you need to add subtitles, then it's probably too loud of an environment. But it should be authentic to you also. I hope that the person our committee sees in this video is the same person that we get to meet should you move forward in the process and be invited for an interview with a member of our admissions committee. Our admissions committee is a professional admissions committee made up of our members of the admissions team, as well as the leadership from some of the different offices that we referenced earlier, including the MBA program office, career development, and whatnot. It is a small group that allows us to calibrate more easily across all of our applications, as we do consider every application that is submitted. On invitation for interview, you will receive a request to submit an essay. I always say, oh, we don't have an essay. This is like a secret essay, surprise essay. And that typically asks you to reflect on your experience of working in diverse communities and how you will bring that to our Sloan community. On the other side of the screen, you see all of our deadlines. Our first round 1 deadline for MBA and LGO is on the horizon, October 1st, followed by 2 additional deadlines for the MBA, and then a final round 2 deadline for the LGO. That is important to know because they start their program in June. And so we do have to speed up that process for the LGO program. And then I also added our MBA early offering deadlines. Here, if you are a current college senior and are interested in pursuing your MBA in the future, so looking to apply now, secure your seat, go out into the world and work for 2 to 5 years, and then join us down the road here at Sloan. If you are a current senior at MIT, you have an early deadline of November 3rd. Otherwise, everyone, including MIT seniors, your one final deadline is April 20th. And we will have many more events and sessions coming up specific to that process. All right, I am gonna take a breath and go over and check the Q&A. I see that number ticking up. Just a reminder for anyone who joined us a little late, we are using the Q&A function. This is how we would like to engage with you. As you see a question come in that was a question you came with, please upvote that question. And my colleagues, Anne, Stephanie, Rich, and Sharona are also answering as many questions through the Q&A function offline in order for us to try to answer as many questions. We have about 25 minutes, so let's see how many I can get through. Let's see here. Okay. So the first question, very popular question, is if during this current pandemic, the admissions process is going to change in any way. Example, have we seen a greater number of deferrals this year, and how will that affect next year's intake? There's a couple of questions in there. So from a broader perspective, we are not planning for any significant changes to our admissions process. There are a few sort of asterisks on that. One is typically our team would want to meet you in person. We would travel all over the world in rounds 1 and 2 and 3. And just as many folks would come to MIT to interview in person with us as well. Unfortunately, given the pandemic, that is not possible. And even last spring, we were doing 100% of the interview experience virtually. And so that is something that you should plan for. I do not think MIT is an outlier there. I think that is really what most schools will be planning for this cycle. And we will still have opportunities for you to engage and get as much of the experience, but virtually. I think the deferral question is interesting. We did not have as many deferrals as I think we all anticipated. We have an incredible class of students that started their MBA program this past Monday. I guess really Tuesday was their first day of school. It has been a great experience all through the summer, getting them excited and getting them onboarded to be here this coming fall. Certainly those students, those admits that were awarded deferral in any of our programs, they need to decide by the round 1 deadline if they'll be joining us next year. And until then, it's really a waiting game. We don't have a clearer picture of how many of those students will ultimately decide to join us next year. But I anticipate that we will, continue to have an incredible pool of applications to review and consider, and quite honestly, make difficult decisions. So thank you for that. I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, next question. Our application is, Sloan's application is unique in that it asks for a relatively short cover letter. Can I share some tips on what makes a great letter, and what are some common errors candidates make? Joseph, I love this question, thank you. I'm always willing to give my favorite tips and tricks out. You're right, our application is quite unique, and it seems to get slimmer and slimmer by the year. I think a number of our team have been doing this and working in this sphere with Sloan specifically for decades, and we know what we're looking for in an application. And so we're really trying to streamline that and align it with some of those buckets, such as your demonstrated successes and also those personal attributes, your comfort level with, working in ambiguous environments. Certainly COVID-19 is one of those, and your leadership potential. Those are the two things we're looking to evaluate and understand in your application. The cover letter, my piece of advice would be, first and foremost, just follow the directions. It is 300 words, so you will probably need to spend some time slimming and trimming that down. But for me, it is your introduction. It's where I want to see, that you understand what the Sloan experience is like. It is not a place I'm looking to see, when I come to school, I'm going to take this class with this faculty. I'm going to graduate and go next job. One, I know those faculty and I know what courses they teach. Why is that course exciting to you? How is it going to help you pivot or make that next step in your career? Add that extra layer. And when it comes to what you're going to do in the future, this is unique to Sloan. We would rather you focus and highlight the impact and that you've had in your career so far, because we think that when you come to Sloan, those career plans are going to change. So don't use the real estate in that cover letter to highlight that, especially if you think you need to tell me something that you think I want to hear. I'd rather you highlight those impacts that you've had. Next question, what are the type of students that MIT is looking to have? There's a place for everyone at MIT Sloan, and when we're, I think what attracts students to MIT and to MIT Sloan is that they're curious and they like to tinker and they're looking to become more comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I said it earlier, certainly this past 6 months with COVID-19 has absolutely elevated our level of comfort or discomfort with the ambiguity and the gray area and sort of the rapid pace that our organizations needed to change. But if that's exciting to you, certainly Sloan could be a good fit. It's also a school that really grounds itself in data-driven decision-making, both quantitative and qualitative. And so even though you don't need to be a mathematician to come to Sloan by any means, it is important that you're excited about learning how to use those tools to drive better decision-making in your industry or your organization. What is one quality of the MIT values from its students? Oh gosh, one quality. I would say just curiosity, right? That you're excited to learn from each other, to sort of peel back the layers in order to build up to be, a better member of our community and certainly a better member of the greater community. How important are the GMAT and GRE scores in the application? This is one data point for us. It's one way that we can better understand your comfort level with a rigorous academic curriculum at MIT. If somebody spikes in their test score, I'm still going to look at how you did in your undergraduate degree, what courses did you take, how deep did you go into them, as well as, what those demonstrated successes are in your career path. What challenges are you taking on? What roles are you stepping up into? And I'm going to balance those together. No one piece of the application is more important. Some people spike in one data point and other people are more evenly distributed across all of the different elements of our application. Can you talk a bit more about the assessment method used by MIT? Is it through exams, coursework, class performance? This is a good question. I didn't highlight this earlier, and I'll make a note to do this in the future. The curriculum at MIT Sloan is delivered really in 3 paths, and all of your courses, you'll experience these 3 different pedagogies or delivery styles. Some will lean more towards one than the other. So we do have a percentage of our courses that where you will experience the case method, though that is not the primary delivery method at MIT Sloan. It often takes more of a facilitated discussion with the faculty playing a neutral role amongst the classmates in the room. There's also some of your content that's just going to be delivered by lecture. There is just that denser content that is best sort of put forth that way. And then again, the action learning experience. So an action learning lab will have some case and lecture, but it's predominantly an action learning experience. Whereas some of our denser courses like econ and finance may have more lecture, but certainly sprinkled with the other 2 elements. In terms of assessment, it really depends on the course. You will have deliverables, you will have problem sets that you do in teams, especially in that first course semester. Some courses will have final exams at the end of the semester. That tends to be our more quantitative courses. Others will have final projects, presentations, papers. It really just depends on the course and the faculty who's teaching that course. I see another question about the importance of the GMAT and the GRE. Again, this is one data point in the application, and it is there to help us sort of on a level playing field measure sort of your readiness for a quantitative academic environment. But again, we're looking at a lot of different components. Let's see here, next question.
Katie?
Yes. Hi, Anne.
Hi. We're getting a lot of questions about reapplicants.
Yeah.
Maybe can you touch upon some reapplicant, tips?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. And I'm just going to open, I see your chat to me, so I open that box up too. So in terms of reapplicants, we highly, highly encourage you, if you're not successful in a previous cycle, to reapply. One of the things we are going to prompt you to tell us in that reapplication process in the online application is what's new, what's different, what has changed, what additional projects have you taken on, anything wrapped, and now you can the learnings from that experience. We do want to see you highlight that to us, but we highly encourage folks to reapply should they not be successful in a previous cycle.
Some other questions we have is about visiting campus and how can we stay engaged with faculty or current students and even the admissions team while we can't accept visitors on campus?
Yeah, this is tough for our team too. We love to meet you on campus, and we love to travel around the world to meet you in person as well. This coming year, I can definitively say that we will not be welcoming, at least in the fall semester for sure, and most likely the spring, be able to welcome visitors to campus. So our team is working rapidly and diligently to uncover new softwares, new tools, to continue to bridge the gap that you normally would have had when you normally would have had the opportunity to be with us on campus. We know that the campus visit is important for a few reasons. One is just to get the feel of what the buildings look like, what sort of the buzz in the room is. I think that for us right now is the most difficult void for us to fill, but not impossible. And there's a lot of conversations around how to build this virtual Sloan, what we would call virtual E62. That's the main student building, our classroom building at Sloan. My colleague Anne is working really closely with a committee in the second year MBAs to create a virtual experience where you'll have more intimate one-on-one or small group time with our current students, and we're trying to be as conscious about time zones. So I like to call it like the breakfast, lunch, and dinner series. So you can see that going live, and probably in a couple of weeks that will go live.
Yep, so probably the end of next week, we should expect that.
Great. And then we will continue through the fall semester hosting a number of kinds of events, both topical webinars, which will feature students or more recent alumni that'll hone in on a specific experience or topic of the MIT Sloan student, as well as the classroom experience in a format that will introduce you to a faculty through a short session where maybe they'll share their research or a topic that they are most well known for, and then have some Q&A with that faculty. And what it allows you to do is kind of get that feeling and that excitement of raising your hand and learning and being in that environment. So on that.
Great. Katie, we have some questions about significant others or coming with children. How does the Sloan community offer support to non-MBA students who are coming with family?
Yes, great question. Sloan and MIT are an incredibly welcoming, open community. There are lots of opportunities for the significant others, which we would call at Sloan an SO. That means husbands, wife, girlfriend, boyfriends, partners. We hope that you make the decision to come to MIT and experience this time together, no matter which program that you're in. There is family housing as part of the graduate housing system. There is, and then a number of our students will live sort of in off-campus housing depending on their needs for their family. There is an incredible significant others club at Sloan, and they have their own initiatives, their own projects that they work on. And sometimes I actually forget who the student is and who the partner is, because I am running into partners and significant others all the time on campus. So please definitely be having this conversation with your family and your partners, and engage them in this experience. There is so much for them to be engaged with, attending conferences or small group dinners, things like that.
Katie, we have a lot of questions on expanding on the leadership. You know, a lot of people come to get their MBA to grow their leadership skills. What type of resources do we offer to help students with gaining leadership experience?
Great question. Thank you, Anne. So the MIT Leadership Center is a great resource to start with. It is led by Nelson Repenning, who is the Associate Dean of Leadership at MIT Sloan. He's also a faculty in the System Dynamics group of System Dynamics. And I'm a big fan, so I'm a little biased of his work. But it is very much in the realm of what we call problem-led leadership. And I often hear faculty talking about how it's really important while you're at Sloan that you're becoming comfortable and in going out and finding what the problem really is, and not just coming armed with the solutions, right? Solutions don't always fix the problems. And so that is very much a mindset that's embedded throughout the classwork, coursework, and certainly in the action learning courses that our students take. There is quite a bit of problem statement identification that goes into that. We've also developed, been very hands-on in redeveloping a period of time throughout the MBA experience called SIP, or Sloan Intensive Period, where in the fall, so October and the spring and March, our students have their courses are suspended for the week, and they are diving deep into leadership and ethics courses. And the Leadership Center was instrumental in redeveloping that, along with their colleagues in the Student Life Office and the MBA Program Office. I really honestly think one of the best ways for you to try on your leadership style or really get feedback about that leadership style is by taking a leadership role in a conference or a club or an initiative around the Sloan School or MIT. The systems in place are going to ensure that it's a safe place to test things out, but also receive and give that feedback or sort of, think about that feedback loop throughout those experiences.
I think maybe a final question, or maybe two. How do students really connect and engage with alums, maybe with finding jobs or just networking in general with recent or former alums?
Yeah, great question. So there are lots of opportunities to engage with alumni. Some are very structured, whether it's through the career development office, networking opportunities. They recently launched, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank on the name of it, a program that you can match yourself to more senior alumni to have conversations about accessing industry or challenges that you should be aware of, so that you're planning your time at MIT right to be prepared to enter that industry. Certainly those kinds of conversations ultimately could lead to career opportunities. Sloanies like to hire Sloanies. Sloanies are what our students call themselves. And so through some of these more structured networking activities, mentoring programs, whether it's through career development or the alumni relations office, or it's really takes a little more rolling up your sleeves, getting your alumni account set up when you're a student and diving into that database and those resources and just using your MIT email address to the fullest.
I think the final question is, Katie, are we going to have an application tips webinar?
We are. It should go on the website any day now. It will be on September 15th, and it will be a full hour dedicated to tips for preparing a successful application, and then more guidance about the entire process. There is one, I think, still posted from last year on our recordings page. Because not much has changed from last year, you can certainly go back and reference it now, but that applications tip webinar will be hosted by our colleagues on September 15th. So I see the time, and I know folks need to get back to work or maybe start their weekends. So thank you everyone for logging in and joining us today. Thank you to my colleagues, Anne, Stephanie, Rich, and Sharona for answering all the questions in the Q&A function. And we hope to see your application be submitted this year. Thanks, everyone.